Hi friends, I'm Gio, and Bentley's with me chewing on a chew bone. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 1. I knelt in front of my boyfriend, holding out the ring box with the small gold-plated tungsten band inside. Custom engraved with Lyle and Devon forever. I'd ordered it off Amazon weeks ago, rehearsing this moment until my heart learned the rhythm of panic and hope. My pulse thumped like a bongo under my ribs. Devon, I began. We met as high school seniors, and these last years have been everything to me. Would you do me the honor of being my husband? I'd chosen the beach below Kitty Hawk for its symbolism, not for convenience or charm, but for its legacy, the birthplace of flight, where the impossible took wing. Kitty Hawk wasn't just a backdrop. It was a dream, a place where something fragile could soar, and I'd believed, naively or not, that our love would too. And it was sunrise, the sun crawling out of the horizon in a field of apricot jam, a glorious pastel event that looked like Monet had painted it himself. The velvet box in my hand trembled like a trapped heartbeat. This was the most important, most terrifying, most hopeful moment of my 22 years. I opened it, revealing the sparkling gold band I had polished at least 50 times. A star brought to earth. I knelt in the sand as the wind teased my collar and the Atlantic sang a quiet hymn. Devon stood before me, his eyes glossy and distant, the coastal breeze ruffling his sandy hair. Taller than he'd been back in high school, his blue eyes still held that quirky charm I had fallen in love with. The pause lasted seconds, then almost a minute. My chest began to hurt. I had imagined him running into my arms, happy, ecstatic, blissfully alive. I knew something was wrong before he opened his mouth. Yet I kept silent, hoping, wishing, needing, wanting his answer to be yes. The silence spoke otherwise. I do love you, Devon said, shoulders tightening. His eyes drifted to the ocean, the sand, the kids running in and out of the surf. Anywhere but me. I'm just not ready, Lyle. Maybe someday. I never thought this was long term. It was fun. Why did you have to ruin it? And he walked away. I closed the ring box, hiding the golden star inside. My soul shattered. I remained kneeling until the numbness spread and the sun had broken free of the horizon. A child nearby pointed. Tourists whispered. I laughed, dry and strange, and got to my feet, brushing off sand and lying to myself that it didn't hurt. Devon disappeared into the parking lot. A moment later, I caught a glimpse of him driving away. I collapsed and sat in the sand, staring out at the Atlantic. Waves surged on the shore and retreated, the white sea foam awash on the wet sand. A trawler tugged in the distance, the faint chug of its engine echoing back. Seagulls dive-bombed not far from shore. People splashed in the waves. At the bluff behind the dunes, the scent of grilled seafood and sun-warmed salt danced through the air. But the sharpest thing was peach, overripe and syrupy, drifting in from a nearby cafe like a memory trying too hard to comfort. It reminded me of Devon's cologne, citrus and sandalwood, still clinging to my sleeve with the intimacy of a ghost. Are you okay? The voice was warm, cinnamon-edged. A man stood nearby in a soft hoodie with flour on his wrist and eyes that didn't push. His breath smelled like coffee and sugar, like my grandmother's house. Peachy, I said, sifting my fingers through the sand. I proposed. Devon said no. The man nodded slowly. That's hell. I allowed a smile, but I think it came off as pathetic. I invented a drink for him, bittersweet blaze, orange juice, blood orange puree, peach schnapps, thought it'd taste like romance. What does it taste like now? He asked. I tilted my head. Sticky disappointment. I want to be a mixologist, come up with new drinks all the time. Not much of a life goal. The man smiled, not cruelly. I'm Elijah. I run Kitty Hawk Brew. Coffee in the morning, cocktails at night. Let me pour you a cup of coffee. I make a mean caramel macchiato. I blinked. You're asking me out after I just got dumped at 7 in the morning? In, actually, Elijah said. His smile quirked to the left. For coffee. Peachy optimism optional. Chapter 2. We sat under the awning of a gray wood building, elevated above the beach. Like many places around Kill Devil Hills, Kitty Hawk Brew stood on sturdy 10-foot pilings, high enough to ride out storm surge and most hurricane flooding. Located a few miles south of Kitty Hawk, it lay west of the beach road and had weathered its share of storms. 79 hurricanes, tropical storms, and near misses have affected North Carolina since 2000. Under the portico lights, all of them old-fashioned Edison bulbs, I told Elijah about Devon, how we'd known each other for years, been serious the last 2, and practically lived together. He'd gone to Durham for college. I had stayed here working and studying. To be a mixologist? Elijah asked, stirring his coffee. A dark roast with 1 pack of coconut sugar. He didn't say it mockingly, not like my family did or Devon had when I told him, but seriously. I've enrolled in an online course, I said. I even have a tasting journal, a whole recipe log, including a bunch I designed myself. A tasting journal? Think of it as my personal lab notebook, I said, momentarily forgetting about Devon. Notes on everything I've tried. Combinations I like, those I don't. Elijah's smile warmed. Bring it by sometime. I'd love to see it. Tonight? I asked. He chuckled, low and warm. If you show me yours, I'll show you mine. Chapter 3. I'd taken the day off work to propose. That didn't go so well. I drove back home to Point Harbor, crossing the 3-mile Wright Memorial Bridge, the stretch of road that connects North Carolina's Outer Banks to the mainland. Point Harbor was already a small community, but it grew when the first bridge opened in 1930, and again when it was rebuilt in 1966 and expanded in 1995. I earned my money as an assistant at the DIY warehouse in nearby Kill Devil Hills. I still live at home. I saved enough since high school to get a 2-bedroom apartment, which I was going to move into with Devon once we got engaged. Now, should I simply move? A 1-bedroom would be cheaper. A pang of loneliness shot through my heart. Does this mean Devon and I have broken up? Where do we stand? Are we even friends? The morning disappeared beneath a flood of humiliation. People always say that proposals are amazing, but this morning was the worst moment of my life. I drove past a small complex with a "now renting" sign. On a whim, I pulled in. Maybe it was time for a change. They had a ground floor studio, 2-burner stove, tiny fridge, blinds that rattled in the breeze. I could afford first month, last month, and the deposit. When I arrived home, the family cat, a big orange tomcat named Cheeto, looked up from his perch atop the fridge and gave me a meow that sounded like a challenge. I set the ring box on my desk, closed, hiding the little gold future that would never be. Should I call Devon? Do I even dare? I lay in bed, holding my pillow and staring at the ceiling. I checked my phone every 5 minutes to see if Devon had texted. He hadn't. No calls. No voicemail. Silent. Funny thing, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying those minutes on the beach, analyzing everything I said, second-guessing the entire morning. It was fun, he had said. Why did you have to ruin it? I finally got up and made a leftover hamburger and cheese burrito, the kind of thing you eat when you're not hungry, but you need something to do with your hands. Mom came home, cradling a couple of grocery bags against her chest. She took one look at me and said, "Didn't go as planned, kiddo?" He declined. I told her everything, even about Elijah coming out and buying me a coffee. God, Devon's a jerk. She set the bags down and walked over to me. Don't mean to sound cruel, but it's better you know Devon's intentions now than a year from now, she said, quickly hugging me. I thought we had a life together. I even picked an apartment. You know you can stay here while you refigure your next move. I know, I replied, helping to put the food away. I just wanted my own place. Mom looked at me, her eyes sad. Her smile emerged. Do you know what always makes me feel better, kiddo? Brownies a la mode. You can take some to Elijah to say thanks for listening. I must have raised my eyebrows because Mom added, chocolate makes positive juju vibes. Pair that with ice cream and the effect is double. Juju vibes? Again? Kiddo, you need all the positive juju you can get. Now get the pasta going and heat the sauce. I'll get the chicken ready. Your dad will be home in an hour and your sis is actually eating carbs this week. Cheeto, atop the fridge, flicked his tail, stretched, and yawned. He gave his domain one last stare before curling up and going back to sleep. Chapter 4. A container with fresh brownies and a cooler with ice cream sat on the passenger side next to me. I had left the Wright Memorial Bridge and arrived at Kitty Hawk Brew. The place looked different in the evening. Pale spotlights uplighted the pillars. Tables now lined the beach surrounding it, and multicolored Christmas lights sparkled from the eaves. Music, loud and cheerful, played. A Goo Goo Dolls track drifted through the cafe. That hopeful one about wishing for better days. Soft, steady, a little bittersweet. It wrapped around the clink of mugs and the low murmur of conversation, like the universe whispering that maybe things could still turn out okay. The mood matched what my soul felt. I paused before walking up the stairs into Kitty Hawk Brew, for some odd reason counting the number of blue lights among the sea of colors. The blue lights steadied me. Something about counting them. Tiny anchors in a world that had been spinning too fast. Made it easier to breathe. The Goo Goo Dolls track faded into another early 2000s soft rock song. Something warm and familiar, and the whole place felt like it was trying to offer me a hand up without making a big deal of it. I exhaled and squared the backpack on my shoulders, carrying my tasting journal. The last few steps toward the door felt like a mile, and carrying the container of brownies and the cooler of ice cream felt heavier. I should have dressed up. What if Elijah doesn't like brownies? He must be 5 years older than me. What am I even doing here? A broken-hearted kid. He was just being kind earlier, and I read too much into it. God, I'm a fool. I should get back into my car, drive home, and drown myself in chocolate and cheap hamburgers. I pushed the door open anyway. The place was happening. The warm air hit me first. Coffee, toasted sugar, something citrusy from the cocktail bar. It wrapped around me before I could change my mind. The chatter inside dipped for half a second, just long enough for me to feel like every eye in the place had turned my way, even though no one actually had. Elijah was behind the counter, sleeves pushed up, a towel slung over his shoulder. He looked up mid-wipe, and his face lit with that easy, unforced smile he'd given me earlier, the kind that made it feel like he was genuinely glad I existed. Hey, he said, like I wasn't a disaster holding a cooler and a container of brownies like peace offerings to a god I didn't believe in. My throat tightened. I lifted the brownies a little, awkwardly. My mom said these were for you. They're, brownies a la mode. Ice cream is in the cooler. Oh crap, did I really say my mom? I'll look like an insecure idiot who still lives with his parents. He'll think of me as a middle school kid trying to act like an adult. Elijah's smile widened, softening at the edges. You brought homemade brownies? Man, you're going to make the rest of us look bad. Something in my chest loosened. Not much, but enough to breathe again. Elijah nodded toward the brownies like they were the most normal thing in the world. Your mom sounds perfect, he said, already reaching for the container. Anyone who believes in emergency brownies is my kind of person. Heat crept up my neck. He wasn't laughing at me. He wasn't giving me that look. The one Devin used to give me when I said something too earnest, too young, to me. Elijah just looked pleased, like this was a good surprise. He set the towel aside and leaned his elbows on the container. Do you know how long it's been since I've had homemade anything? I can't cook. Nobody I know cooks. Everything here is prepackaged. My life is prepackaged. The ice cream came from a store? I said, helpfully. You want me to stash the ice cream in the freezer? A startled laugh escaped me before I could stop. I just wanted to say thanks for listening, for this morning. I was having a bad morning. His eyes softened, warm as the lights strung across the ceiling. Anytime, my friend. He reached under the counter and slid out a worn black leather notebook. This is my tasting journal. Chapter 5. 2 plates holding generous portions of Mom's brownie and a scoop of ice cream sat in front of me on the bar. One for me, one for Elijah. I call this the Northern Lights highball, Elijah said, pouring tequila blanco into 2 glasses filled with ice. I came up with it years ago. It doesn't always work, but you'll see. I thumbed through his tasting journal, settling on a page labeled Northern Lights. It had a picture of a glass with glowing green liquid and the recipe next to it. And now a touch of white rum, some lime juice, blue curacao, pineapple juice, Elijah said with a flourish. For the pièce de résistance. I leaned forward. He topped it off with some Sprite. The liquors swirled together, glowing the color of skies over Alaska. Elijah slid one of the glasses to me. I smiled and sipped it. It tasted deliciously cold and autumn crisp with a taste of the tropics. We talked over drinks and brownies. He listened as I spoke, about Devin and the rejection. Elijah told me about his breakups. He'd had 3 over the years. You know, Elijah said, tapping his brownie, this might be a good lineup for the morning crowd. Are you any good at making these? I panicked, heart thudding, palms sweating. Elijah's soft smile, his perfect blue eyes, the casual way we spoke. I swallowed. Suddenly it felt like I had to make a good impression. First impressions are good, right? I've never made brownies before in my life, so why did I say, I've been making them for years? Oh my God, what just came out of my mouth? I could kick myself for the lie, but I wanted an excuse, any excuse to see Elijah again. I smiled, hoping he couldn't hear the tremor in my voice. Elijah nodded, returned the smile, and leaned in. What say you bring by a couple dozen tomorrow, and let's see how they sell. I'll pay you in credit. When it rains, it turns into a hurricane. I matched his smile, even though my stomach flipped. No problem, I said, like I hadn't just lied through my teeth a second time. Chapter 6. I was back home by 10. The first thing I did was open the cupboards. How do you even make brownies? Sugar, chocolate, marshmallows? Mom was sitting on the couch, knitting. She loves knitting, loves the needles clacking together, loves creating things people can actually use. I don't have one of those jet-setting, exciting families, just normal people with normal jobs. Mom, how do you make brownies? She looked up. I don't know, I just make them. Grandma used to call it Julia Child's dump and throw method. Dad, sitting across the room, added, cooking without a net. Just hope the trapeze doesn't break. My sister rolled her eyes. Damn, Dad, you never make sense. Lyle, just be like everybody else and look it up on Google. I spilled the whole story. Sis cackled. Dad shook his head. Mom snickered and set her knitting aside. Why do you always do this to yourself? Sis let out a loud sigh. Get dumped by one guy in the morning and flirt with brownies that night. Lay off your brother and apologize, Dad said, not looking up. I apologize, Sis replied, lamely. Never liked Devon anyway. Listen to stupid music. How many? Mom asked. I bit my lip. 2 dozen? Sorry. Mom got up and looked in the fridge. You'll have to go buy eggs and butter. The no-salt kind. No salt? I asked. One of the tricks to baking is controlling the salt. Salted butter limits that control. By 11, I had returned with the ingredients. Mom showed me what to do in the proper proportions. Once I mixed them, I put them in the oven. While they baked, I wrote the recipe as I remembered it, the ingredients, the amounts, the temperature, the timing. Mom had gone to bed long ago and left the cleanup for me. At 12:15, I pulled them out of the oven. My reward was a giant, flat brick. I'd overcooked them. I looked through my notes and started over from scratch. By 2 o'clock, the second batch was baked and ready. They cooled into fudgy squares with a soft crackled top, smelling like warm cocoa and late-night stubbornness. Not perfect, but good enough to pass for something I'd been making for years. I stared at the finished masterpiece, and for the first time since the rejection, I let the pain flood in. Alone in the messed-up kitchen, batches of brownies around me, I sat on a stool and cried. The humiliation overwhelmed me. How could I face anyone now? What do I tell people? Hell, what do I tell myself? I was still there when Dad got up for work at 5. He didn't say anything, just hugged me and walked me back to bed. Chapter 7. 5 hours of sleep. I had a full shift at DIY Warehouse, and I needed to drop the brownies off to Devon. Elijah! The brownies are for Elijah, not Devon. For a second, I almost texted Devon to see if he would try any. Then I remembered yesterday. I remembered his words. I never thought this was long-term. Mom and Dad had left for work. Sis had gone to school. Caratuck County High School, a 23-minute bus ride. The same school where I met Devon. I had to smile. Mom and Dad had left cleaning the kitchen for me. However, somebody had sliced and packed my brownies in a container. A little note said, "Knock his socks off, kiddo." I drove to Kitty Hawk Brew, careful of the brownies. Once parked, I climbed the stairs and entered the main room. It smelled of coffee and cinnamon and had an early morning dim ambience. Acid jazz played on the speakers. A display case had 7 different kinds of bagels. Elijah set an espresso in front of a customer, a relaxed smile cruising his face. His eyes lit up when he saw me. I brought the brownies, I said, walking over and setting them on the counter. 2 dozen. You made them last night? He asked. Sure did, I replied. It felt good to tell the truth this time. Had to go to the store for butter and eggs. Those smell good, he said, carefully looking them over. I'll let you know how they do. Wait, you never gave me your phone number. I quickly scribbled it on a napkin. I've got to get to work. I'll stop by after my shift. About 30 minutes later, as I was clocking in, I received a text. Just a test to make sure I have the right number. I sent back a thumbs up and a smiley face. Chapter 8. Work went smooth. People asked about the proposal. I gave them the edited version. Everybody hugged me and said, Devon's going to regret it. Or, someone better is out there. Don't give up. Or my favorite, honey, that man don't know quality merchandise. You're better off without him. leeching off your credit cards. My shoulder's aching. I pulled into the parking lot for Kitty Hawk Brew. Some honky-tonk danced through the night, the Christmas lights changing color in time to the music. I pulled myself up the stairs. Several people were sitting along the deck, watching the ocean to the east. Inside, the bar had a dozen patrons about the room. A different bartender manned the bar. I walked up. "What can I get you, friend?" she asked. "A Northern Lights highball," I said. It felt like I was flirting with a ghost. Her eyebrows raised. "I'm not familiar with that one." "Elijah made it for me last night," I replied. She gave me an odd smile. "One of Boss's private recipes. You must be Lyle." I had to chuckle. "Elijah around?" "He had morning shift today, but he wants you to call him." Unable to contain the sudden lightness in my chest, I bit my lower lip and asked, "How did the brownies do?" Her eyebrows lowered and she clucked her tongue. "What brownies?" I ordered a beer, took a seat out in the air, and looked at the dark ocean. I sent a text to Elijah. "Hey, at the Kitty Hawk Brew, how'd the brownies do?" 2 minutes later, he called. "Hey, how are you feeling?" "Better." "Is that why you had me bake brownies? Give me something to do?" "In part," he replied. "I've been where you are. I proposed 2 years ago. Same result." I held the phone tight to my ear, closing my eyes and feeling the loss once again. "And," I said, my voice almost a whisper. "Had to keep busy," Elijah said, his voice also growing low. "I painted my apartment and learned to surf." "You surf?" I asked. "You live by the ocean long enough." I leaned back in my chair, tilting back on the rear legs. "How are the brownies?" Elijah paused. "Good news, bad news. Which do you want first?" I exhaled. This is the last thing needed to make a bad day even worse. "How bad is it?" Elijah swallowed. "If this is going to work," and he paused as if the news were hard to mention, "you must take an online course. Usually it takes an hour and it costs, but it's not much. Since it's for Kitty Hawk Brew, I can cover it." I stared out at the horizon. The night was dark, save for the glow of the Currituck Beach lighthouse far up the northern coast. "That doesn't make any sense," I said, my mind scrambling to catch up. "Online course for what?" "Your food handler's permit." "Huh?" "Your brownies were a hit. Gone in 5 minutes. If you get your permit, I can sell 10 times that amount. Easy." "Serious? People like them?" "You sound surprised. Stop by tomorrow night. We'll celebrate over Kitty Hawk Honey Cream Ale, my treat." Chapter 9. The next day, I met Elijah at Kitty Hawk Brew and took the online course. He paid, and suddenly I had a second job. I made brownies, professionally. Talk about career change. Mom thought it was funny. Dad only nodded. My sis spammed me with brownie recipes from all over the internet. Matcha brownies, black bean brownies, avocado brownies, and something called black sesame miso tahini brownies. What unholy fusion is this? What deranged mind would even come up with it? That's a hard no. I'm not making those. Cheeto prowled the kitchen, tail flicking left, then right. He leaped onto his perch on the fridge and stared down at us mere mortals. I kept the brownies simple. No one needed to know this was my second attempt, least of all me. The first week after the breakup was the hardest. I heard that Devin had gone to Raleigh. He never tried to call me. I wanted to call him, but Dad said, "Let things end. It's time to live your own life, and Devin to live his." And Mom added, "New boyfriends don't want to hear about your ex. It's a serious turn-off, kiddo." And Sis replied, "Marshmallow and Caramel are savage together. Make one." Cheeto stared at me as if daring me to defy him. Family can be annoying, but they were right. Time to let the past stay buried. I found working with Elijah fun and exciting, and he made something in my heart fly. Over the next month, I transitioned from baking in Mom's tiny kitchen to baking at the Kitty Hawk Brew with its large ovens and wide working surface. I found some online baking tutorials, expanded my repertoire to chocolate chip cookies and marshmallow brownies. Mom gave me her old kitchen knives. Dad made me a wooden cutting board. Sis gave me new Bluetooth earbuds. "Your food is only as good as your tunes," she quipped. Cheeto allowed me to scratch his head. A homemade breakfast, gooey chocolate and steaming espresso, caught on faster than I expected. On the day I moved out of my parents' place, I found the ring box and rang. It had been hiding behind my desk this whole time, and I never even noticed. My breath caught. It had fallen to the floor sideways and was stained with dust. I didn't pick it up, just left it lying there. Sis eventually picked it up. Cheeto claimed it, loved biting it. I'm not brave enough to climb up to the top of the fridge and rescue it. Rule number 1 in life: do not mess with cat toys. Chapter 10. 3 months after the proposal misfire, everything felt different. Hell, I felt different. Some days I'd go hours before realizing I hadn't thought about Devin once. I'd heard rumors he moved permanently to Durham because Duke University had accepted his application. As Mom had said, that chapter is closed, kiddo. Time for a new book. I loved my studio apartment. My parents' old couch, Mom's leftover pans, Dad's ancient lounge chair that still smelled like his cologne, and the good luck charm Sis made out of random seashells. Even Cheeto didn't meow when I left anymore. I quit my job at DIY Warehouse, saving a ton on gas every week, and was now the full-time pastry chef at Kitty Hawk Brew. I'd expanded my repertoire from brownies to cookies, oatmeal, chocolate chip, lemon bars. I had a dozen recipes I could make for Elijah, and he loved every one. And we'd gotten close. He came over to my studio sometimes, and we just chat. Not close, but closer. The kind of close where I was wondering if I dared kiss my boss, except he didn't feel like my boss. Where's Cheeto when I need help figuring this out? It was Friday night. Elijah had come over with a 6-pack of Kitty Hawk Honey Cream Ale, and we binge-watched episodes of Chicago Fire. During a break, I popped popcorn and returned to the sofa with a huge bowl. "Can I sit next to you?" I mumbled. "It's your couch," Elijah said, making room for me. I took the seat beside him, sharing the popcorn. "Did I ever say thanks for the rescue?" "About 50 times, he said. "I mean it, though. Those were some pretty dark days. Why did you help me? We didn't even know each other." Elijah took a handful of popcorn and leaned toward me. "Your eyes?" "What do you mean?" He swallowed. "I've never seen eyes as empty as yours. It was like looking into a skull. And I wondered if that's how I looked when I was rejected." A smile almost flickered across his face, but he bit his lip instead. I had to do something. I took his hand. "I'm glad you did." "I've wanted to ask you out," he began. "Why didn't you?" I asked. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "When it happened to me, it took me a long time to move on. I didn't want to date or meet people. I just wanted to shut myself in my apartment and let the world move without me." "You loved him?" "Yeah, it took months. But I rejoined the human race. I figured you need the same thing. Space to heal. Time to heal. A reason not to shut down. So I gave you one." "I never baked before I met you," I confessed. He smiled. "I kind of figured." "How?" I started to ask. But the kiss arrived before the word could finish. Something slow simmered, months in the making, a desire, a sharing, a messy and desperate connection I needed. He needed. We melted into each other, lost in the caress, the moment. And just before I surrendered completely, one stray thought flickered through my mind. Marshmallow and coconut brownies with caramel drizzle and white chocolate chips. Chapter 11. We saw each other often after that. I stayed at his place sometimes, or he stayed over at mine. About 3 months after that first night together, D-Day happened. It was Sunday, and we were having a late lunch with my family. Mom was embarrassing me with baby stories. Dad was quietly sipping his coffee and finishing his quiche. I still wasn't brave enough to try that recipe. Sis had printed off a stack of cookie recipes, including a hideously complicated blueberry cream cheese toffee strudel cookie she demanded I make. The picture alone gave me heartburn. It wasn't wrapped like a fruit pie, but woven, an actual lattice work of dough and dairy, a lace basket of toffee. When baked, the woven strips pulled apart and opened little windows into the filling. What a nightmare! Even British Bake Off wouldn't attempt it. Cheeto observed us from his throne on top of the fridge, magnanimously allowing us peasants a little free time. That's when Mom's phone rang, innocent sounding. A blessed break from her baby stories, and a chance to start clearing the table. Elijah helped. The rule is, if you make dinner, you don't have to clean up. Mom answered her phone. Sis gathered the utensils. Dad took the empty glasses to the dishwasher. Elijah shuttled the plates, and I made sudsy water and scrubbed the dishes clean. Cheeto rolled his eyes and licked his paws. Mom's voice carried from the other room. No, there isn't a possibility. The silverware thunked as Dad dumped it into the dishwasher. He doesn't work there anymore, and no, he doesn't live here either, Mom replied. Sis stared at Mom. Do you get the feeling this isn't about blueberries? I don't think Lyle wants that known. I stopped and looked toward Mom. So did Sis. Elijah handed me a plate. Mom's voice chilled. He's engaged to a better man, and tell your idiot son that the boat he abandoned left port a long time ago. Mom hung up. Chapter 12. Mom, did you just say engaged? Sis screamed. As one, we all looked at Mom. She gave a humble sort of smile and said, Devon's mom makes me mad. Devon's entitled bud is back in Point Harbor, wants to see you, thinks you've been pining on the beach for the last 6 months waiting for him. I set her straight. Mom, you said we were engaged? I said, cautiously glancing at Elijah. Had he taken offense? We hadn't even talked about marriage, only planning how to expand the bakery, installing a refrigerator display case, taking advanced orders for special events, maybe hiring a part-timer. But marriage? Trust Dad to be practical. Lyle, you never changed your number. Why didn't he call you directly? I would have blocked him, Sis said, then unblocked him just so I could block him again. He never called, I replied, so I never did anything. Eventually, I deleted his number. As Mom said, chapter over. Damn right, kiddo, Mom said. If I crossed the line, sorry, but I just wanted them to grovel. Is that bad? I always said your temper would get you in trouble someday, Dad said, though his mouth quirked into a small smile. Mom hunched her shoulders and mouthed, sorry. She didn't look guilty at all. Elijah's gaze met mine. I think it's funny. I've never been proposed to by a guy's mom. What's next? Your sis is the best man? Your dad throws flower petals? Cheeto is the minister? Hell yeah, Sis exclaimed. 1 meow for I do, 2 meows for I don't. And I'll make the wedding cake, I said. Wedding brownies for everyone. Sis pouted. I wanted blueberry cream cheese toffee strudel cookies. We left my parents' house with a chorus of hugs, and a copy of the hideously complicated blueberry cream cheese toffee strudel cookie recipe. Sis would not take no for an answer. I read the recipe again and wondered why Devon had tried to find out about me through our mothers. Chapter 13. 7:13, on a Wednesday, 3 days after Mom received the phone call. I had just gotten home from Kitty Hawk Brew and coincidentally ended a call with Elijah. We'd been working out a time for me to meet his mom. A single-parent family, she worked as an EMT and had a chaotic schedule. We hadn't talked about marriage or engagement since that Sunday afternoon. Was I ready to propose again? Did I even want to be married? Did I know Elijah well enough to ask? Did I love him? What if the answer was yes? What if the answer was in my bone-tired feet? I needed new shoes if I was going to be on my feet all day. Maybe I could get Elijah to massage them one of these nights. Maybe tonight. I was about to send him a text when I noticed the man. Devon stood outside my studio apartment door. His hair was salon-styled, and he wore a hunter green silk shirt and light khaki chinos. He had shaved and smelled of high-end cologne. The light reflected off a silver chain around his neck. Not the man I had last seen on the beach 6 months ago, that's for sure. This man dripped frat house charm. The back part of my mind added, and desperation. I didn't have time to clean up. Floor dusted my shirt, and I was sure the chocolate stain on my sleeve would never come out. Only Cheeto would appreciate my hair. Devon opened his mouth like he was about to make a grand statement, but all that came out was, "Hi, can we talk?" Should I say no? Should I say yes? Should I rage? I was too tired and my feet hurt. I unlocked my door and went inside. Devon took it as an invitation and followed. "You never called," he said. I set my stuff down and wandered to my fridge. My studio apartment was neat. Mom had taught me well, and it had to be, because I tested recipes here. When I didn't answer, Devon filled the silence. "I heard you were engaged." I chuckled. "Thanks, Mom." Then faced the man I hadn't seen for 6 months. I thought it would hurt. It did, a little, but not as much as I expected. I opened the fridge and began pulling out ingredients. I didn't know what I was making. I just needed to keep my hands busy. "What do you want?" I asked. "We used to be friends. I miss that." I sighed. My eyes fell on the hideously complicated recipe my sister had given me. Why would I attempt something like that? Because I didn't want to look at Devon. "We aren't friends any longer. You need to leave." He flashed a smile filled with manufactured sweetness. I bet all the university boys loved it. "I should have said yes," he said, "taking you with me to Durham. I didn't realize until it was too late what you meant to me." I rolled my eyes. "If there's a point to this, make it. Otherwise, leave." "You're cold," he said. "I know I hurt you, but I'm willing to make it up to you. Did you keep the ring?" I realized it didn't matter what I said. Devon would take any answer as proof I still cared. I began rolling out the pastry dough. I'm in love with someone else, someone who is kind, who listens, who wants a real relationship. David flinched at that. "I can give you that. I've grown a lot in the last 6 months." "He was there after you left," I said. "Built me back up, helped me grow into me." "He can't know you like I do. We've spent years together." "Elijah knows me better," I said. "How can you know that?" Chapter 14. I set the dough aside to place the blueberries and sugar in the pan to bring almost to a boil. He gave me chocolate. He gave my life meaning when I didn't think I deserved any. I went through a very dark time after you left, kept wondering what was wrong with me. Devon quickly said, "There was nothing wrong with you." I didn't see that then. Not for a long time. Elijah inspired me, and his love rebuilt me. It's rebound. Devin folded his arms and leaned against the wall. It's not real. I looked at my ex. It became real. So real that our love reaches every part of me. So real that we are working together. So real that what was once between us, Devin, seems shallow by comparison. But I realized that I love you. Give me a chance to prove it. I stirred the blueberries so they wouldn't burn. Real love doesn't need to be proven. It exists or it doesn't. What we shared wasn't love. It didn't last, didn't evolve. You left. I'm sorry, he said. Please believe me. I found love, real love, the forever kind of love. My phone rang. I knew who it was before I answered. Devin stared at me, his eyes growing wide. As I reached for it, he said, "We're talking about us." There is no us. I set the phone on speaker. Hey, love, where are you? Forever love, he said from the open door. I like that. In the mood for orange chicken and kung pao beef? I brought takeout. Devin looked from Elijah to me, then to Elijah. There really is no us to come back to. There hasn't been an us for a very long time, I replied. Take care of yourself. As Devin left, Elijah set the takeout bags on the table. What are you working on? Something way too complicated. He smiled. I bet it's only complicated if you do it alone. Chapter 15. It was 3 months after that, during a blustery summer sky, that Elijah and I walked along the beach just below Kitty Hawk, enjoying a quiet moment, so to speak. Kids were splashing in the waves, some guy was yelling about lost sunglasses, and a trio of pelicans flew over the ocean. Can I ask you something? Elijah said, hands in his pockets. Sure, I said, staring out at the waves breaking just offshore. Elijah dropped to one knee, and a ring box appeared in his right hand. What say we try this again? My pulse thumped like a bongo under my ribs. He opened the black velvet box. A small circle of gold lay inside. Elijah opened his mouth to continue, but I never gave him a chance to ask. The end. Thank you, my friends, for joining me. If this story sounds just a teeny bit familiar to some of you, the first part was originally on my other channel, but it was in third person. I reworked it to be in first person, added some more details, and spent some time with the characters, and turned that little tiny snippet that was about 4 minutes long into this full-blown story. So I guess you could say in a weird way that Copilot provided the seed, I provided the story. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace, my friends. I love you all.